Why is too much breath a bad thing? I would have thought more breath would be good.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought more food would be good because more food equals more energy. So what's very confusing when you get into the biochemistry of breathing, and this took me months and months. I don't have a background in this stuff, which was a real hindrance. It was a pretty steep learning curve, is that you start to understand it's the efficiency of breath that is so much more important than the volume. So a lot of us think we want more energy, right? We want more oxygen. We need more oxygen to get more energy. So I'm going to breathe more. That allows me to get more energy. It's completely false. So the opposite is true. And we've known this for more than 120 years, that when you overbreathe over your metabolic needs, you offload too much carbon dioxide. And without getting too deeply into the weeds here, what that does is it inhibits blood flow throughout your body, and it makes it harder for you to get oxygen. You can see this for yourself by take 10 or 20 very deep breaths, and you'll feel some tingling in your fingers and in your head. That's from a decrease of circulation. So in order to get the optimum amount of oxygen, you should be breathing slowly, you should be breathing low, you should be breathing through your nose. By doing that, you are pressurizing that air, and you're allowing that air more time in your lungs to travel down deeper, where that gas exchange can happen so much more efficiently. You get more oxygen with less work and less wear and tear on your body breathing this way. And you can see this by feeling your heart rate when you breathe in these slower breaths. And then if you have a pulse oximeter, a lot of people do nowadays, look at your blood oxygen levels. If anything, they'll stay the same or often go up. So this is just simple mathematics, and yet we've gotten this so wrong for so long. And it's great that people are starting to correct this. And again, we have wearables that can show us and can prove to us how we're breathing, how efficiently we should be breathing in the future.
What are some of the health effects of poor breathing then, if someone doesn't fix the awful instructions you've given them?
Well, look around. Look at the rates of asthma. Look at the rates of panic disorder. Look at the rates of sinusitis, of increased risk of allergies, increased risk of snoring, increased risk of sleep apnea. Diabetes is tied to disordered breathing as well. I mean, this list goes on, because if you're struggling or if you're doing anything inadequately all day long, all night long, guess what's going to happen? Your body can keep itself alive. That's good, but it can't keep itself healthy. So it really starts with stopping mouth breathing. And this is the number one thing. Look at nature. Look at any other animal in the wild. Look at how they're breathing, right? They're breathing through their nose. Look at an infant breathing deep into the belly, into the nose. So this is the very first step. And once you condition yourself to be breathing through your nose, you're a lot of the way there, because that breath through the nose slows things down. It's hard to hyperventilate when you're breathing through your nose, right? So that takes care of a lot of those rules and regulations.
I got to tell you this story, man. So I had a guy called Stephen McGinty on the show. He's just written a book about the Pisces 3 submarine rescue, which is the deepest ever submarine rescue. It happened in about 1970. And these guys, Roger Mallinson and Roger Chapman, were stuck 15,000 feet down in a submarine for 86 hours on two bottles of oxygen that were meant to last them 60. So they were talking through the breath cycles that they needed to do. They were collecting the condensation from their breath on the surface to drink. They had oxygen tanks. So what they were doing, and this was really, really interesting, they were purposefully alternating between breathing through their nose when they needed to make a decision and breathing through their mouth when they needed to conserve oxygen, because the mouth breathing was less efficient, but that's actually what they wanted. They didn't want to take as much oxygen in. They simply wanted to exist. So they tried to dial their breathing down to about 6 breaths a minute and breathe through their mouth. And then if they needed to do something, communicate with the surface, run the scrubber, run the O2 tanks, make a check on some sort of measurements, then they'd breathe through their nose for a little while beforehand. The headache would abate a little bit. they would have a little bit more cognitive function. They'd do the thing, they'd go back to breathing through their mouth quite slowly. I thought that was such an in-depth understanding of how breath works. And they stayed down there on this bottle of oxygen for a day and a half longer than they should have done. Crazy.
That's a great story. And we know that nasal breathing affects how the brain works. So there have been numerous studies. There was one a couple of years ago out of Northwestern University that was fascinating, looking at rhythmic slow breathing through the nose and how different areas of the brain will come online and different congregations of neurons will start lighting up in different areas to allow communication to work more fluidly between different brain regions. So the researchers said that actually breathing through the nose can help you make better decisions because it's changing the neurochemistry of your brain. And the fact that these guys knew about this in the 1970s is really impressive because a lot of the breathing research was coming out after that time. And, you know, you don't have to tell them the importance of nasal breathing or how the body responds to different breaths. I mean, they experienced it firsthand, and what an incredible story.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.